Welcome everybody to our second ever live stream event here on YouTube. My name is Flavia Negretti and I'm happy to be here again. And today we're going to have some really interesting topics that I know some of the students at PH Dreamers were really excited about, and I'm really excited to start talking about it as well. So with that said, let's get started. I think the first thing I want to do today is kind of go over a little bit about getting into medical school, what are the things they are looking for, and specifically hone in on MCAT and how we can build a schedule around that. So without further ado, let me go ahead and share my screen here. And I just want to go over a few things about, what's medical school like? What are they looking for? I know some of our students here will be going into medical school pretty soon, and so, or you're thinking about it. So let's start honing in on what that is. All right, so let me see if I can make this work. Here, over here, move this a little bit like that. Okay, so the MCAT is our medical school entrance exam, right? And really it's composed of 5 topics, right? We have our biology, our biochem, or biochemistry, right? These two are usually together. They're pretty much kind of cohesive in their topics. Then we have our physics. Then we have our English section. And last but not least, our psych/sociology, which are kind of interchangeable. Okay, so that's really our main kind of idea here with the MCAT. I'm gonna try to zoom in here. And the next thing we want to talk about is, let me just make sure you guys can see my screen. Yes, okay. The next thing we want to talk about is, okay, well, Flavia, how do I go about and studying all these topics? Are they all kind of equally kind of weighed in the MCAT section? And my answer to that would be no, they're not all equally weighed. It really depends on how you're gonna take the MCAT. So for example, some MCATs are more physics heavy, some MCATs are more bio heavy, but all in all, the MCAT tries to do a good job with getting kind of like an equal kind of portion between the test, okay? And so I think a big portion of the MCAT, so it's split up into 4 sections. So we have the BBS or BBCHM, which is the biochem section. So this is the kind of the first section it's split into. Then we have our CARS, which stands for English essentially. I'm gonna put English next to this. Okay. Then we have our, oh, excuse me, this is wrong. This is not a, kind of get rid of this. This is not correct. Apologize for that. This is actually chem and our physics. So we call it CP normally. Biochem and biology are kind of here intertwined, mostly biology though. And then last is our psych. And these are all split into equal portions so that the entire exam is out of 524 points total. Okay. Now, with that said, let's go into how we can go ahead and start making a calendar. So I'll give you an example as to what I did. For no reasons whatsoever, am I saying go ahead and do this with your study calendar, but these are just some suggestions that if you'd so like to use, then for sure go ahead and use it. And I'll go ahead and talk about my study, my kind of journey with this, because it was definitely an interesting journey, to say the least, to proceed with the MCAT. And so I have a Notion. For those of you who don't know, Notion is kind of a giant website that you can use to either take notes, organize thoughts, organize events. In this case, I used a Notion to make a dashboard on the concepts that the MCAT has, links that I find helpful. For example, exam strategies available, my Google Drive. Well, we'll talk about it in a little bit. But what I really want to draw your attention to, and this is the way I kind of broke down the MCAT. I'm a more logical person. I tend to want to pursue a more logistical or broken down version for an exam. So what I did is I ended up breaking down the concepts that each the MCAT provides. So in the MCAT, there are a total of 12 what we would call quote-unquote concepts, or sorry, 10. And they all fall under these 4 categories that we talked about earlier, which are the chem physics, the cars, the biochem, psych. So for example, as you can see here, physics, for example, has foundational concepts 4, 5, and that's it. And each foundational concept has different skill sets. We'll get into a second. But the idea is that the MCAT can test you on any one of these concepts, right? They're all fair game. And for me, it was important to break these concepts down into kind of categories so that, for example, I was doing really poorly on foundational concept 1, right, on all my questions, and I could go back and have an idea of what concepts are in this foundational concept. So it kind of just divides the MCAT, and I can go back here and kind of give you an idea of what this would look like. And I apologize if this is a little bit of a harder transitional video. It's my first time using this program, so we'll hopefully play it out well. Like I mentioned, the MCAT has these 4 sections, right? Within these 4 sections, there are there are ways or versions that we could go about this. Let me see if I can. Okay, perfect. Back workspace. Okay, I apologize for that. All right, so for example, if we're looking at cars section, or not cars, that's a bad example. Let's do psych. Psych has foundational concepts 6 through 10, right? When I'm doing AMC flashcards, I'm looking at, okay, well, am I doing bad in foundational concept 6A? So I need to study that concept, right? I need to study that section. And so that's how this kind of website was helpful for me, because it kind of gave me a detailed analysis. And so what I did after that is I put them into a giant spreadsheet so that you can even go a little bit deeper. So content category 1A, right? And then we go into the AMC flashcards. You can see that they're divided by foundational concepts. This is the section for 1A, right? And this is the section for 1B, 1C, 1D. And so when you're practicing, flashcards and all that, you can kind of get an idea as to, okay, this is what I'm, okay in, this is what I understand pretty well, and this is what I don't understand pretty well. And you can go back to that. And so that's how I kind of structured my MCAT in terms of resources. But I want to talk real quick about the actual schedule, okay? So with that in mind, I made a schedule for, I think, 11 weeks. of just pure MCAT reviews. And this kept in mind with I was working, I was doing other things, so I really wanted to make sure that I had enough time to study for this exam. Um, Besides the colloquial Anki cards that you would do, I would set them up by the category that I was either struggling in or that I had to review. And so, as you can tell, this kind of helped me separate the MCAT into nice categories. For example, Tuesday, I would be working on content review 4A, which is, I would scroll to this little Excel sheet that I made. 4A, we're talking in the physics department, we're going through velocity, we're going through longitudinal waves, torques, and all that. I would be making the cards that I studied earlier for 3B, which is the biggest section, and the making the Anki cards for that day too. And so when I made my Anki cards, you can imagine that I separated it again based on the deck. Okay. And so with that said, I just want to take a quick look back at some, links that may be of help, resources that may be of help to you. The biggest one, again, is Khan Academy. I can't stress that enough. Khan Academy has some of the most useful study tools. Description of the AAMC MCAT, that is provided by AAMC. Let's take a look at the Khan Academy real quick. So Khan Academy does a nice job of separating, like the MCAT, what it's on, society, culture, and honestly, if you just watched all these videos, I think you would have a really solid understanding on the MCAT, in my opinion, especially in sections that you're not very familiar with. The more in-depth detail of the MCAT can be found on the AAMC website, where they kind of go through each section content and they explain, okay, well, this is what you should expect, in and so you can imagine something like this, right? Content category 1A, B, C, D, which is what we just talked about. And the skills section, I just want to talk about that real quick. Skill 1, Skill 2, Skill 3, Skill 4. So every question you get on your exam will be divided into the content category and the skill set. So what does the skill set mean? Okay, so skills are basically ways that the MCAT poses a question. So let me give you an example. So skill 1, for example, is all the, let's skip to the bottom, fact-based problems. So these are your, give me an answer, like a logical answer to the question, right? Skill 2 is problem solving. So I'm giving you an equation, I'm giving you some numbers, plug and chug into the equation, okay? Skill 3 is design and execution experimental questions. So I'm giving you an experiment, I need you to answer the questions based on that. And skill 4 is interpreting tables, figures, and graph, which is the most kind of intuitive, the one you don't really have to study for, because it's more of just your common reasoning, how you were to, how you would be able to infer from the reading or the passage an appropriate answer. Okay, so that's the way that the MCAT breaks it down. I hope this was a little bit of help to anybody going into, studying for this exam. It's a big task. It's a big exam. I would say my biggest advice for anybody taking the exam is to really make sure you break down your time, really understand how many questions you're getting right, what your areas of weakness are. Make sure to break down the exam to something you find, kind of helpful, and just practice. I think that's the biggest thing. Just do problems. The best questions are always found on AAMC on the website, but you can find other questions on third-party vendors. All right, and with that said, thank you for coming to our quick Rising Wednesday. If anybody has any questions, make sure to leave them in the comments below. Please make sure to follow our YouTube's channel. We're going to continue streaming every week here. And go ahead and follow us on phstreamers.org as well. We're launching our new conference on the 25th of June. This will be our second ever conference. So if we, if you want to submit a proposal, go ahead and do that. The bit.ly will be on phstreamers.org. And with that, then, thank you very much, everybody.